Starting cool. Okay. So, Amanda, you want to intro us in so you can have words on the podcast?
What? No, this is my thing where you ask me and I say no, and then you have to do it.
Nope, you have to do it.
No, you're the Ben now.
It's episode 64.
It's episode 64?
Yeah.
Get at me in 5 more episodes. I'm absolutely doing that one.
Notice she started with it in mute.
I did.
She was already muted by the time you asked.
This is a thing. This is a thing now. It's an established pattern where I do not do this, and we have the same argument.
You should start having your Wi-Fi drop. Seriously?
What?
All right, Amanda, do it. Come on.
It's episode 64?
Yeah. We can edit all this out.
No. So, okay, here's why I don't do the intros, because I don't do the scheduling. I don't know the context of any of these things. This is exactly why I don't do these intros.
All right, cool. Okay, welcome to PHP Town Hall, episode 64. I'm Matt, your host, and I'm here with Amanda Folsom. Say hello, Amanda.
Hi.
She's being a 6 out of 10 best friend right now, so we'll talk about that later. And we're joined by one of the best people I know on the face of this earth. He never wears shoes, and he loves making videos for other people. Say hello to Ryan Weaver.
Hello. I'm not wearing shoes currently.
Literally no surprise there.
No.
None at all. How's it going?
Oh, it's going so good. This is going to sound worse than I mean, and I already told you guys this before we went online, but this sort of got me out of part of my bedtime routine with my child tonight. So we could do this whenever. I mean, I might not get permission from Leanna to do it whenever, but this is good for me.
So if I schedule this a standing town hall episode every Monday around 8 p.m. your time, how quickly will Leanna text me and tell me to knock it off? Yeah,
incredibly quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
She's way more than I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Just had to throw it out there. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we have Ryan on because the last 2 episodes we've been kind of all over the place with finance, and we had a very drunk and tired Phil Sturgeon on at one point, but we wanted to get to programming and talking about it, and so we figured we bring Ryan on to talk about Symfony because they've been doing so much incredible stuff around the community, around their developer experience, all different kinds of packages, platforms, supporting PSRs, and all that kind of stuff. So I want to bring Ryan on to talk about what is going on in Symfony in 2019. What does 2020 look like? Things like that. And the cool thing is I want to start off with this hackathon they did in Europe. I know the European Union is throwing Symfony a little bit of money now for bug fixes and things like that.
Yeah, he's noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, what was going on with that kind of stuff?
The whole thing is weird for me because, and I want to add political, but in the U.S., the idea of the government paying for anything, it's just weird. And so the European Union came and basically they passed some law or something, and so they want to invest in technologies they use. So they flew 50 or trained or drove 50 of the most active Symfony developers to Brussels just to basically hack on Symfony for an entire weekend. And I was not invited. Okay, no, I'm too far away, probably, et cetera, et cetera.
Money, visa, yeah.
So it was just since I wasn't invited, I still woke up at 3 a.m. and lurked on Slack and GitHub.
What was it like being up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
It was awesome. It was, well, I have a son, so it was incredibly quiet. And so I lurked on Slack. But seriously, I mean, you don't, obviously open source is all volunteer based. There are some people that are, smart enough, like Taylor and Fabian, to kind of fund themselves to work on it. But for the most part, we're just kind of doing what we can. So what happens when you get 50 experienced developers in a room together to just work for 48 straight hours is ridiculous. And it was basically 5 months straight of work that was done. There were things that had been sidelined for years that there were suddenly these active conversations on. So there's all kinds of stats out there. You can Google for Symfony EU hackathon. But yeah, it's just a really cool thing. And I wish that it happened all the time, but money and open source.
So, I mean, is it going to turn into possibly a yearly thing? Or
I don't know. I don't know how the funding goes for that. I hope so. And I know they're going to throw the bone for some other technologies that they use, because I think it's for technologies that the European Union uses internally on some stuff. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I hope so, because it was cool, man. It was just like you could like bother people on Slack and they like got back to you immediately. Whereas I bother people anyways on Slack. You can ask anybody in the Symfony community. I will bother you. If you sign on Symfony Slack and you've ever contributed to Symfony, I will ask you to do something. But you normally they ignore me. And this time,
I mean, knock on wood, I signed back into the Symfony Slack today, and you've yet to bother me, and I know that's
oh man, that is not good information to tell me.
No, it's not.
What kinds of things are you interested in working on, Matt?
Yep, you're screwed now.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm so screwed. I like to work on whiskey consumption. I also like to work on APIs. Either order really works.
Okay, mix those together.
You should know me by now. If you need something, you can ask me and I'll bitch about it. But I'll do it. But I don't want to like take the fun away from Googling it. But like, what was like the top 2 or 3 things that like really excited you about what came out of the bug fixes and things that people actually worked on? Not necessarily the community, but like things that were actually pushed into the framework.
This might be a little bit like me-sided because it's where I was focused on. But the messenger components, that's something that I knew nothing about like a month ago, but I've been binging on a lot. So you obviously Laravel. So like Laravel has like a sweet queue system. And it's something that Symfony has honestly lacked for a while. And now it basically doesn't. So Messenger is actually not a new thing to Symfony. It's basically a message bus. It's a really awesome message bus. You can use it as a query bus if you want to. It's just like message and handlers if you've done that kind of system before. So if you don't need to do like async stuff, it's just cool. But you can basically make the handlers asynchronous. So kind of the simplest way of saying it. So you're like, hey, I have this thing that's handling it. It's doing like a thumbnail or whatever, and now I want to make it asynchronous. So I'm going to make it asynchronous and handle it. But full disclosure, and I like talking happy about Symfony. I don't have bad about Symfony. A couple features missing, like to really make it shine, and those are like definitely some of the things that came out. So the ability to like retry messages automatically, have those messages go to a failure queue or failure transport afterwards. Ability to like have one message that's handled by 2 handlers. But you want like one handler to go to like this queue and that handler to go to that queue. And then when this one fails, it like retries in the same queue. Like lots of weird edge case nerdery stuff. A Redis transport, which something else that Laravel has. So like honestly, like that was like a really exciting thing for me because there's a lot of work to be done in that. And like the lead developer of that component just like absolutely crushed that stuff. Yeah. So I'm really excited for Messenger 4.3, which comes out in May.
So is that just a plain like PHP object type thing, or is it backed by, you said Redis, but does it have like any other kind of layer on top of that?
That's a really good question. It's just a PHP library. So again, if you're like used to Laravel, like you can think of the queuing system. Of course, I can tell you lots of great things that I think about Symfony's Messenger versus Laravel's queue. But if you know Laravel's queue, like you get the idea. And then it's backed by whatever you want. So you can back it with, have you ever used like RabbitMQ? I'd never used it before until like 2 weeks ago. Now I have a bunch. So you can send stuff to like RabbitMQ or Amazon SQS or Redis or like there's a Doctrine transport, which is honestly like what we might use at our company because we're lazy. So you can just like throw it into a database.
I mean, we use Doctrine at work too, but I think that's because one of the maintainers is the CTO of our company. So, it is what it is. But so I mean that's really cool. And I've seen that popping up in Symfony Live conferences as of late. So it's really cool to kind of get like a deeper understanding of what that actually was. Because honestly, like when I saw Messenger, my head did not go to a bus service. I honestly thought that y'all pulled another Laravel and brought in an SMS layer on top of the framework.
Yeah, or built an instant messaging chat system.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, someone's got to take Slack on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Messenger is like, it's just like, it's one of those parts of Symfony now. It's just like super nerd fun. It just feels fun to play with. So you should play with it.
If I can ever get Symfony to actually work the way I want
can we talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
This is the conversation that Matt and I have on Twitter every month.
Every so often.
Let's just go through our therapy session right now.
Great.
There you
go. So, I mean,
what's going on, man?
You know, I don't know. I mean, so okay, what was I trying to do? Okay, here's my thing with Laravel. I feel like I can just run create project Laravel, and it does pretty much everything out of the box for me. And I'm talking like, I mean, I know this is kind of like a totally different approach Fabian and Taylor have taken to building their frameworks, where Laravel is tightly coupled to Eloquent, whereas Symfony is like, you can use Doctrine if you want to, but you don't have to use Doctrine. You can just use PDO and it's a plain old like layer on top of that. But coming from Laravel, I really just wish there was one command I could just run and get everything I want to out of the box and just kind of fix my .m file and have my commands ready to go, like all the artisan commands, and just go with it. Talking to Kevin, is it Kevin or
Kevin? Yeah, Kevin Douglas.
Yeah, he seemed like, I think he gets me, his stuff gets me closest to what I want, and honestly, I just need to power through it.
So the problem, the problem is, yeah, there's different philosophies.
Yeah.
And so now, because you're my friend, I get to burn you.
That's fine.
So do you building an API, or are you building something traditional? Building a pure API or something traditional?
I have an idea for a project that is like a total throwaway project. I could honestly go either way with it. If I was going to go the Laravel route, it would be a Laravel API and a Vue front end consuming it.
Yep.
So for this example, let's stick with that style.
Yep. So this is like the different, like this is one of the key differences, like not better or worse between Laravel and Symfony. And I know I'm repeating some of the stuff that you already know. But when you start a Symfony project, you basically have like 13 files, which counts like get ignore files and throwaway files like that. Because it's tiny. You have no templating layer. You have nothing. You basically have a routing controller layer. It's as close to like a micro framework as you can get. And like the key thing, and of course we need to make sure that this experience is obvious, and that might be something that we're not doing as good a job as we can. But the key thing is, like, if you're building a pure API, you don't want a template in. I don't want a templates directory. There is no templates directory. Like, that's silly. I don't want that garbage in my application. If I am, maybe I'm not even building a front end in my application, so I don't actually even want any of like the assets JavaScript stuff. If I am building sort of a more traditional app, then I do want a templates directory. You might not be using Doctrine, which, as you said, can have like pros and cons as far as like making that kind of flexible. So when you install Symfony, you don't have a templating engine, you don't have a database layer, you don't have Doctrine, you don't have forms, you don't have validation, you don't have a serializer, you have nothing. And it is amazing. Because then you can install everything piece by piece, which I know sounds terrible. And this was always the problem that I had with everything before, a couple years ago, which is like, man, like as a teacher, I want to give them something small. Because if you give somebody like, you know, like a micro framework, right? You're like, look at this beautiful micro framework. It's 8 lines of code. And everyone's like, this is amazing. I can understand it. And but then on the flip side, of course, like, you know, reality hits very quickly, because then you have to wire everything up yourself. Versus like giving the kitchen sink, which is more the Laravel way. Like there might be like more files that you need to kind of sort through to get started, which I don't love. But then you get, you know, once you kind of get over that curve, like life is going faster because you actually have all the stuff there. So you could never have like both. And I think that's what we tried to solve with the Symfony 4 approach, which I think is really good, which is the system of recipes, which is you do start with that project with just 12 files or whatever it is. And then as you install the composer packages, the recipe system scaffolds for you. So for example, there is no templates directory. As soon as you say composer require twig, because you can't just do that, there's also an alias system. Composer require twig, you get a templates directory. And you get a twig.yaml file, and you can see like on line 3 of the twig.yaml file, there's some configuration that says my templates live in the templates directory, which I just created for you. If you don't want that, you composer remove twig, and those directories are gone. So composer required Doctrine, same thing. Like you don't have a data configuration file. You don't have a source entity directory, because if you're not using Doctrine, you don't need that stuff. But if you composer require Doctrine, you have it. And so to kind of go back full circle back to your thing, if you're going to do a pure API backend, or even if you're going to do something that wasn't like pure, it's fine. If you want to have like some, couple like traditional pages, that's fine. But if you want to do that like kind of powerful backend, that is API platform, which for people that don't know, Kevin Douglas, that's his library. It's like basically an API system that's built on top of Symfony. And the sweet thing about it is API platform, like if you follow their docs, and so this will speak to like two different crowds. If you follow their docs, what they want you to do is actually like pull down this skeleton, and the skeleton is like all pre-Dockerized. And there's actually like a front end, a back end. It actually has like an HTTP2 proxy in there. It has like an admin generator, and like it's all wired up together. So you can just like, just spin up Docker and like everything is talking to each other, which is really, really awesome for a lot of people. Or you can go into your Symfony application, which looks however it looks, and you can say compose require API, and it's going to download that package and scaffold everything into your application. So like that's the sweet thing about the recipe system plus honestly API platform, because that kicks so much butt, is it's going to put the things in your application that you need. So to go full circle on this, I think the possible downside of this, and like this is something that people have said, is when you do start with Symfony, of course we're going to try to write great documentation, but it might not be obvious what you need to compose or require. Because like once you sort of know that you need to compose or require Twig or compose or require API, then the files that scaffolds in sort of guide you in a sense. Even if we didn't give you any other documentation, you're like, oh, I have a templates directory. I wonder where my templates go. I bet they go in the templates directory, But you do need to kind of know, like, I need a database. How do I get a database? Oh, here's like the compose require doctrine command that I need to get that. So that's the path that, like, where I think we could fail. But like once we get past that, it's good, man. I'm totally a Symfony fanboy, but I love that experience of starting small and opting in and having it like kind of build your application bigger and bigger.
I mean,
and rant.
That was a great rant. A+, 10 out of 10 would listen to it again. I think, part of my problem comes from the fact that, like with OpenSky, like everything's already set up for me due to years and years and years of developers like working on it well before I got there. And it's just like, it all worked. And I kind of wish I could take that application and just do what I want to do on the side and not have to really worry about it. Like with Laravel, I have a bash script that run it. It brings in all the packages I want to use, and I'm off to the races. It's partly it's a whole different developer experience, but also it's muscle memory and comfort. Like if you want to learn, you got to be uncomfortable. So. But that brings us, you mentioned API platform as well. And we've been talking about that a lot at work for side projects and things like that. And it looks really freaking cool. How much have you gotten to play with that?
It is really freaking cool. The full disclosures, we don't use it on our site yet, though we probably will soon. But we are writing a tutorial on it right now for Symfony Cast. So we're getting into it pretty far. My impression because API platform is around for a few years, and well, actually, let me give I'll give the 30-second speech for people that don't know about it. I sort of mentioned it's a API thing built on top of like Symfony framework. But like what this thing gives you out of the box is just totally absurd. And I am honestly still wrapping my mind around it. But basically, like if you have a database entity, so actually we talked about our tweets. Like if you wanted to start if you wanted a super rich, like JSON LD powered, Swagger, like open API, like API that like was super powerful. Everything I wanted, like a single entity in your database. Just to keep a simple example, it's basically compose require API and then bin console make entity, which is going to like interactively kind of guide you through building that database structure. And ultimately, what you're going to have in your application is a single class, which is basically the class that is your entity. It's a class that represents whatever database table you have, like a product database table. And then you're going to have a little annotation above that says this is an API resource. So the idea behind API platform is it kind of gets you away from the route controller response thing. Like normally, if you wanted to build an API, just like a single API endpoint, you'd be like, all right, let me build a route and I'll make a controller. And in that controller, I'm going to like build my JSON, right? And I'm going to return that as a response. So what API platform does, it's like, all right, let's get rid of, for the most part, that controller layer and actually think about our backend as far as like models. So it's like, it wants you to like take your product model or your user model and say, I want to expose this as an API. And like, boom, right then you've got like the single Git collection post, put, delete, all of the points, coming back with like JSON linked data, Hydra format. It's got like the open API / Swagger, basically documentation that you can play with and everything like that. And on top of that, like it's super customizable, because for a long time I was like, yeah, this looks really amazing, but it's gonna kind of fall apart once you start customizing it. And either they've done that really well, or I've waited long enough to really get into it, because like I don't hear that as a complaint. Like it's still built on top of Symfony, so you can still do tons of like cool stuff with it. So honestly, for as much stuff as I want to talk about with stuff that we're doing in Symfony, like there's lots of great stuff we're doing in Symfony. I'm super excited. Like it's going an amazing direction. I could probably sell more ice cream if I just said there's this thing called API platform and you should try it, because it's incredible.
I mean, so you mentioned it has like open API support and all that kind of stuff, and it you said it follows like JSON API. I mean, but I think Phil would probably haunt me from other countries, and if we don't ask, does it support hypermedia, links, and Hadios and all that good stuff too?
Yeah, that's basically what the yes. And I'm gonna totally talk beyond my pay grade right now, because I am. I'm pretty sure like that's basically like JSON LD is that linked data. So I think it's basically built into that format, and somebody's gonna yell at me if I'm wrong about that. But yes, like you're coming back with links on everything. So everything's done with IRIs, and the IRIs all link to each other. So it's actually a little bit like it's think about it. It's like it's all super duper standard to the spec. I mean, like everything about API platform is like, do not reinvent what the open standards of APIs are trying to accomplish right now. Like, let's just do what open APIs are supposed to accomplish. So that includes like, basically links. So if I have like two different resources, and this is like something that weirded me out at first, but now I love it. If I have two different resources and one of them is into another one, like what that key actually looks like, if it's like if it's a user and it's like related to a user, it's actually like it's an IRI. It's like, it's not like, oh, the ID for this product is like 5. It's actually like it's /API/users/5. So it's actually like a link over to the other resource. So yeah, it's all total. Like I said, I'm still like honestly scratching the surface of it, because, and maybe you guys can like pipe in more about this. But when you have like the open API, which is basically a fancy way of saying you're able to build an API and then generate a certain automated README, effectively a machine readable README about your open API. If you're able to like build that machine readable API, machine readable README for your API, which is basically what open API is, then what you can do from that is you can actually start generating clients in different languages. So you could basically say, hey, I have an API, like forget about how you make it. I have an API and it does cool stuff, but I've also like generated this very specific format that describes my API. And you can just be like, and here it is, I gave it to you. So you can take that then, and you could actually like use a library to generate a PHP client, which actually like knows all the different methods and all the different resources. And when you get back this resource, it's going to have like this key on it, because that's what the JSON told me I was going to get back. Or you can take that same thing and you can give it to somebody in JavaScript, and they can build basically like a TypeScript client as well. So you're not like making like raw fetch calls anymore, but you're actually like dealing with a rich model, and that model is automatically generated because that API actually like told you exactly what it looks like. So for me, that's actually like one of the most exciting things, and that API platform gives you that like for free. But in general, even if you're not using API platform, like when this started to like click in my head, I was like, oh my God, like I need to go find APIs and consume their open API spec. So I can see this happen. Like this is craziness.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about open API is like what it allows you to do, because not only can you write a spec and generate your, as you say, README, but really, you know, machine readable spec file. You can also generate SDKs like you mentioned. You can also have a quicker feedback loop through mocking, mock servers, data validation, things like that. So it's really cool to see Kevin add that into the platform, because that's such a huge step forward for API development. That's still like, it's on 3.0, but it's still not as widespread as like Phil and myself and other people are really trying to make it. So like the fact that he's doing that really helps.
It's hard, right? Like it's a lot of work. You know, I'm old school. So I come from like the standpoint of thinking like I need an API endpoint. Like let me build my JSON.
Right.
And this is like totally different. It's like totally meta. You're like, I need an API. Let me like describe it in a completely rich way. And then we'll fill in the details of like actually making it work.
Like you're really making me like want to like just sign off this broadcast and just like dive into all this. Like, because I've seen API Platform talk about so much. And what I really loved when Kevin tweeted at me the other day is like his example was API Platform and Open API, two things I absolutely love. But then he was also like, hey, Vue.js too. And I was like, yay. The fact that all that kind of comes together really makes it awesome. And it's definitely showing that like y'all's developer experience is really, really like reaching a new level. I mean, like, how did y'all like what brought on like all the changes to the developer experience? Like, were you watching other frameworks and seeing what other people were talking about, complaining about, or is it just kind of like you knew what was already kind of broken and you hit the road running?
No, man, Laravel started kicking our butt, hands down. That's it right there.
That's it.
I mean, when Symfony 2 came out, it was like the new hotness because it was like the first framework that made it to like, this is so old now, made it to like PHP 5 games. Remember, like 9 years ago, it was like, it was like the most amazing thing. So because of that, we enjoyed a couple of years of like, Symfony's awesome. You know, a lot of people were like, Symfony's also like really hard, but like, yeah, it's like really cool. And then Laravel came along, and I think they just kind of took that. That thing, they're like, let's do like, you know, dependency injection container. Let's do, you know, obviously like namespaces and all that kind of stuff, but let's make the developer experience like first and foremost. So yeah, I mean, like that's the truth of it. And I'm not afraid to say that. And it's easy to look at what Symfony's done over the past few years and like see the Laravel inspiration, especially stuff that I work on. I'm chief Laravel idea stealer. Probably because I'm not as smart enough to like make my own ideas, but also because Taylor's done such a good job with those ideas. So of course, like I'll say we take, you know, we borrow from Laravel's ideas and like we do it the Symfony way, which, you know, I think is like the better way. Not to start any flame wars because we stole their ideas in the first place and thought they were amazing.
This is you know, flame war. This is great. Let's do it.
Okay, so we took their ideas and we implemented them the better way.
Oh shit! Okay,
here we go.
This is a great time to mention that Taylor has just PayPal me $100 to say that this episode is sponsored by Laravel. So
perfect.
I'm just kidding. My bank account. Taylor, if you want to get at me, if you're listening.
No, honestly I cannot. Like, it's not what I develop in. It's not what I prefer to develop in. But I don't have enough. Can't honestly. For better or worse, I can't have enough love for Laravel. Like, we are trying to eclipse Laravel in developer experience. It's classic like competition. We're trying to eclipse them in developer experience with a true object-oriented experience that can go from micro to macro.
That was spicy.
I didn't even mean that to be spicy.
That was pretty spicy.
Didn't even mean that to be spicy, you know? Like, for better or worse, we follow object-oriented principles until we hang ourselves with them. You know, so it's not always like the easiest way. We're trying to make it the easiest way, you know. So like that's like stuff we've done with auto wiring over the past couple of years. Like Laravel did that first, you know. We have it now. It's a true object oriented, blah blah blah. But you know, a lot of those ideas definitely came from Laravel.
I remember Bo Simonson was at Sunshine now 2 years ago, and he was talking about how to set up auto wiring in Symfony. This is, I think, before it was actually a thing that Symfony did. So it's great to see those kind of concepts being pulled in.
Yeah, he was somebody that definitely pushed us. You know, he's another person like you, Matt, that has been in both worlds. You know, you guys are incredibly useful and probably will be bothered on Slack a lot.
I'm so useful. It's about time. That's on my review, Ryan.
Yeah, so, he pushed us a lot with that because again, it's like it really is. It's there's lots of cool things happening in the Symfony world. Some of them certainly are things that are inspired by Laravel, and then we just try to do it like the Symfony way. So, you know, Symfony had a compiled container, which is really great for performance. It also makes the auto wiring thing a little bit harder, but now you kind of get the best of both worlds because you get this like super performant compiled container. With the auto wiring stuff on top of it. But, you know, took some time for us to get there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I saw lately that like I was super excited about was the Maker bundle, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the one that kind of stole a bunch of ideas from Laravel's Artisan console command where you can just kind of like make controller passing a path and like there's a scaffold controller for you already. That's like
yeah.
I love having that now.
Can I say we probably both just stole this from Ruby on Rails?
Probably.
Yeah, because we technically had we had a bundle before that. Yeah, you know, we had a bundle before that called the generator bundle. But the thing was, the word generate is like super not hipster, and so Laravel, they figured this out. Make sounds way cooler.
Yeah.
So we basically made ours make as well.
So here's a question for you: where did bundle come from? Like, what is the meaning behind labeling your different namespaces bundle?
Well, we don't do that anymore. Like you have it in your OpenSky app.
Yeah.
But in new applications, like nobody creates a bundle.
Huh.
The only thing that our bundles are like third-party reusable stuff.
Huh. Cool. I was just curious. Yeah.
You're in a Symfony 4 app. Like it looks, honestly, again, it looks a lot like Laravel. You're like, I have a directory and I put classes in it. But to answer your question, it goes way back when Symfony 2 first came out. It was this idea of like there's like bundles are just plugins, really, but like the end user was going to create bundles in their application, and there were also going to be third-party bundles. And the word plugins kind of made it sound like they weren't first-party citizens. You know, you don't normally think of like I developed my entire application simply by creating plugins. So Fabian basically invented this word bundles, which is really a plugin. But in Symfony 2, you actually code bundles. We scratch that just because it's honestly simpler not to have bundles in your application. So now you have directories of files.
That makes sense.
I love directories of files. It's one less concept.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It took me a minute in the OpenSky application to kind of really wrap my head around what are bundles and how do they
get that question. You're like, what is this? The answer is it's a directory with a name.
I mean, it's basically just a namespace box of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the OpenSky application, but it's massive, and it's just one more thing on a mountain of stuff you have to learn. That's just like, I don't want to learn what bundles are, but you kind of you have to. So because that application's been around for so long, you're seeing some of the lessons that we've learned over the years of exactly what you said. You're like, that's an extra concept, and we're like, do we need that extra concept? It's like, oh, we don't. I mean, Jay Wage, if you're listening, there's a book idea right there of like mirroring Symfony application development to Symfony framework development and lessons learned in an old ass code base. You need some money. There you go. So what other things in the Symfony world are like really exciting you right now? Like, I know they just released a new HTTP client. There's a mailer. There's Panther.
Panther. Yeah.
Cloud. I mean, if you want to get really spicy, I have a question I can throw your way, or we can wait a little bit. It's all up to you.
Okay, you have to throw the question at me now because you said spicy.
It's very spicy. How many Symfony developers complained that they had to add void to their return types based on PHP Unit 8?
I remember that.
Fire.
Oh, none that I know of.
See, there you go. Okay, I was just curious.
I did hear some complaints, though.
Do what?
I did hear some complaints, but not from Symfony people.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
however, the people that I heard complaining, I don't really feel very strongly, but I will say I did not disagree with them.
You don't think so?
It was a big shoulder shrug for me because I don't really care. But I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Makes sense. I mean, void is kind of like, okay, it's not entirely, but void is, in some ways, void is kind of silly.
That's fair. I can agree with you on that.
You should talk to Nicholas Grekus about this sometimes because he's smarter than I am, and he actually has like technical reasons for why void can cause problems with like backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I met Nicholas last year. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah, he's also a super nice guy. Yeah,
that's one of the really cool things about the communities. I mean, I really feel like Symfony is way more of a global community than other PHP communities, but everyone is just so nice and welcoming. You know, I mean, Nicholas, Fabian, you, Kevin's super nice. Michael Cullum, you know, he's there, but yeah,
I shared a hotel room with him like 2 nights ago.
if you wanted to like have someone tell you sweet things, I could have done that for you.
Yeah, but not in his accent.
That's true. Well, I mean, I just have Google Translate it for me.
Yeah, you know, and Michael, you should ask him about it. Anybody that hears this, Michael's been working on his Southern accent.
Oh,
that's because he almost slept on my couch a couple of weeks ago.
So classic.
He was up in Chicago, and I was like, "Dude, escape the snow and come sleep on my couch." And he almost did.
I'm a little surprised he didn't. That's Michael, man. He's just up for it.
Yeah.
I drug him to DrupalCon last week.
Yeah, so
as one does.
I found his phone number on Facebook. So I started texting him, and he had no idea who it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I just kept like messing with him the entire. It was so great. But so I mean, like, we can rag on. I could spend 60 minutes just ragging on Column, honestly. But so I mean, pick one. Let's deep dive either the mailer, Panther, or the HTTP client. Which one?
We should probably do HTTP client.
Okay.
Because that's a good hot topic that people either love or people got really pissed off about. Right.
So I mean, let's start with it. What were the complaints? Like what were people really not thrilled about?
So have you guys ever heard of any other PHP clients or HTTP clients written in PHP? Because there are a bunch. So that's the complaint, right? It's like, hey,
HTTP plug and things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, from that perspective, it's like, hey, Symfony finally came to the rescue and solved this problem again.
But okay, I mean, my first question is it a problem that needed solving?
It did inside of Symfony. So there are a couple of like practical things. So first of all, I'll say that Nicholas Grekus is super smart, and he's the one that worked on it. He talked with me, for better or worse, a lot about the developer experience of it, and I'm super happy with it. It's lazy by default, but doesn't feel lazy. So it's like you can make a client and say like, I want to, request this URL, request that URL, and request that URL, and all three of those are happening async in the background without you asking. But then if you don't really care about that or don't realize that, as soon as you call like get content or like get header or something like that on one of those responses, it blocks until it finishes. So it basically feels like a synchronous library, but really it's happening asynchronously. And if you do want to handle them asynchronously, then you actually at the bottom say, okay, I want to basically like, start calling me as these things finish, and you can like chunk them in one by one. You basically have a callback that's called as they're finishing. So it is asynchronous first without feeling asynchronous first, because as you know, like async, you see a lot in Node, for example, right? Like async is amazing, but it can make your applications, it does make your applications more complex when you don't need to take advantage of that async. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So I'm really excited about the developer experience of it. Like Guzzle is amazing as that's been over the years. Like every version came out with was like closer and more perfect to like the HTTP spec, and in my opinion, like less usable. Like I so miss the Guzzle 3 or 4 like response arrow JSON method.
Yeah.
That like decoded it for me.
Yeah.
And like threw an exception if the decoding failed. But like that's, that's not part of HTTP. So, they got rid of it for better or worse. So, I'm excited about the developer experience of the Symfony one. So to go back, like the need in the Symfony world, there are like two needs. One of them, as you guys know, probably, we don't, in the Symfony world, we don't love PSR 7. So there is, help me out, is it PSR 16? I look like an idiot.
For
HTTP client?
I think it's 7 and 6. I want to say 16. Yeah.
All right, Googling in the background. 18. I knew that it's on 18.
18?
Yeah, PSR 18, and we'll just pretend that we edited that backwards. PSR 7 is the request response interface, and PSR 18 is the HTTP client interface. There's actually like a FIG approved one. And the problem, like, I say problem, like it depends on who you are, is that uses PSR 7. And PSR 7 is just it's very orthogonal to the way that we want our requests and responses to work in Symfony. Like it just doesn't work with our philosophy. That's totally subjective, but doesn't work with our philosophy. So we didn't want to build an HTTP client on that interface, which is why we have our own. By the way, we do have a new, again, something we took from Laravel, we do have a new package called Symphony Contracts. So a lot of the interfaces that we have are getting pushed to Symphony Contracts so that you can just, require a Symphony contract if you just wanted to implement an interface. Like there is a new HTTP client interface from Symfony. So if you just wanted to build a client for that, you could just, depend on that interface from that contract. The other thing, which is like a little bit more subtle, and this is the kind of stuff though that people in the Symfony world think about, not me, because I just like try to make stuff. I work on Maker Bundle. We generate controllers. Other people will think about this. is kind of like long-term support and security. So Symfony has that, like we have long-term support. We know exactly when our long-term supports are coming. We support them for a certain number of years. We take security releases very seriously. This is important because projects like Drupal use Symfony. So we have to they have to know exactly how long they can depend on Symfony, like how the process for those security releases going down there. So it's not ideal from a security standpoint for, or it's kind of complicated for Symfony. Anytime Symfony, a core piece of Symfony depends on a third-party library. Because we don't know what their security policy is, and we don't know what their long-term support is. So unless a library has that very clearly defined, and they're going to play ball with us the same way that Symfony works with Drupal, like we can't really depend on them. So we have a couple of components now, like Mailer, which is coming out, which needed this HTTP client intern Symfony. So for the first time, we were like, we need request response to HTTP client stuff like inside of Symfony itself. It's not just like, here's a library you can use if you want to, but we're not using that. We needed to use it, and we needed something like that we could depend on from a security and support standpoint.
So, I mean, that all sounds fascinating. My question is, so Tobias Nyholm, he's, as far as I know, still a Symfony internal developer. I think he manages HTTP plug as well. Was there not a way to kind of make HTTP plug play well with Symfony instead of kind of rewriting the wheel? I'm not saying that rewriting the wheel is bad. Sometimes it's needed, but I'm just curious with the expertise you had with Tobias, like was that a factor, or was it just kind of we need to do this?
Yeah, it is sort of a strange thing, because he's on the core team, and like Tobias is so great, and you know, like he actively. This also happened with the cache library. Like he already had a cache implementation, and Symfony made their own. He's a really good sport about it, just like helps us out, because Tobias is amazing. But isn't HTTP plug that basically is centered around the HTTP client interface, isn't it? I know it predates it.
It predates it, but I think now it does, considering that he was the author of PSR 18 as well. And I could be wrong, but don't they have Guzzle under that name as well now?
I know that he also like is one of the maintainers of Guzzle as well. Yeah. So I don't know. I actually can't really answer that exactly. I know that it would probably HTTP plug probably would have needed to be brought under the Symfony namespace for that to happen. Again, just like probably for like kind of maintenance and security stuff. And I'm gonna sound like an idiot again. That's okay. I'm gonna totally go with that. I'm just gonna preface it with like, here's Ryan, saying things he doesn't know what he's talking about. Also, like Tobias is my good friend, so he's gonna be mad at me. But isn't HTTP plug that is mostly about the interface, isn't it? It's like less about. Does it even have its own implementation? So the HTTP plug was like, we're the adapter, and then you like put like Guzzle or something else behind to actually like make it go.
Yes. So here's Matt saying something stupid as the host of PHP Town Hall, which is amazing that they let me do this. I actually have not used HTTP plug all that much, only because I think that's how it does it, and instead I just go grab Guzzle.
Yeah, use it directly. Yeah.
I can just use Guzzle.
I think it's more about the interoperability. So I don't know if there's something, in some sense, something to take from HTTP plug other than like lessons learned and inspiration and that kind of stuff. And that's all to say, like the tough thing about PSR 18 is that it's not a bad interface. It's a great interface, and like lots of smart people worked on it. And actually, to that point, it's a one class adapter around Symfony's HTTP client that turns it into a PSR 18 HTTP client. And that was important for us because if you're using Symfony and you're like, hey, like I'm using this library, this library, it's good. All of a sudden you use a library here in the PSR 18 HTTP client, but I'm using Symfony's. You're like, this sucks.
Right. Yeah.
So we basically give you the normal HTTP client service. And we also give you a PSR 18 one. So when you auto wire, you just like type in which one you want and you just get past it. So it still allows you to like grab the PSR 18 one if you want it. So yeah, PSR 18 is not a bad interface. It's a great interface. And again, I don't know what everything that went into like what Nicholas did when he was building the HTTP client, but I know that he tried to build off the shoulders of giants across many languages. So I'm sure it's something that he looked into, because what was really, because we couldn't use the interface because we didn't want to use PSR 7. What really was to gain from there was like those smart people and like the work they did and the spec docs they did up and the sort of lessons learned.
So I remember last year when Fabian was here in Nashville and we had the massive Nashville PHP, which is super dope. He vocally announced he did not like PSR 7, but is he a fan of 18, or is he kind of resigned to it's there and we should use it?
What, 18 or 7?
Yeah, 18.
I think my guess would be the same thing that I think, which is a really scary thing because I never want to say anything on Fabian's behalf because I'm almost always wrong. He's just like, you know, like levels smarter than I am.
It's okay. We'll talk about the alcohol later.
But I think it's like because PSR 18 is built in PSR 7, it's like kind of a null conversation.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, but like, you know, like if you actually look at the interface itself, I'm guessing if he did, I don't know that if he actually has, he'd actually be like, yeah, this is a solid interface. It makes sense. I just wish that it didn't work with PSR 7 requests and responses.
Right.
So it makes it tough. So of course, now we're going to say use Symfony's HTTP client, and you can implement both interfaces if you want. And we hope that other libraries that implement the PSR 18 one add the the Symfony HTTP interface adapter to theirs. They're not like, the reason it was only one class. I told Nicholas, hey, could we make PSR 8 adapter for this? And he's like, maybe. And then he came back like 30 minutes later and was like, I did it. Because they're really not that different. And HTTP clients don't do that much. So it's not like it was the craziest thing.
That makes sense. So what's in the pipeline for like the next year or so? What kind of things can people expect coming out? Like, you know, we had the mailer, we had the HTTP client, we had Panther, Messenger, all these awesome things drop within the last year. Is there anything on the horizon people can be looking for? Like I know like when Taylor is doing it, he's all super secret and kind of hidden away with his super secret projects. But with Symfony, it kind of feels like it's like you don't say anything until you just drop this massive library, and everyone's like, "Oh man, there's never."
It's so true.
No one ever knows like this is coming.
And the truth is, neither do I.
But I mean, you have access to the super secret Slack channel. I know you do.
I do, and like, and they include me on some things, and other things that I think they realize that I am not going to be helpful on.
I thought you said you had spoil like how what's his face in the Marvel comics. They don't give him the script because they know he'll just like talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm probably not that. Although maybe I might if I was drinking right.
Yeah.
No. So like mailer, that was a surprise for me. I get like a super cryptic message like a month before that. Fabian's like, "Hey," Fabian talks to me like once a month, and he gives me like he'll write like one sentence to me, and like he was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey," he's like, "Do you have any screencasts about sending emails in Symfony on Symfonycast?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Okay." And then a month later at some keynote, he's like, "Symfony mailer." I was like, "Ah, see what you did there." So and then one other time he has a touch bar on his computer.
Oh yeah.
And he put like a little Symfonycast logo on there with like some subscriber stats, and he took a picture of his computer and he sent it to me. He said, "Using a new component in this." And like 3 months later, I found out about HTTP client.
Oh.
So Fabian has his own strange way of releasing things. So I can't tell you. So in the truth, like there are secret things that like I don't know when they're happening. Sometimes I do know if they're happening, and even if I knew, I couldn't tell you. But I actually don't know if anything right now. There's one big thing that I do know that's public, and it's just going to require some work to push it through. And it's Symfony's security layer. And it's just like it's gonna like I hope we can push it through. It's like it's super boring in some ways. It's just like making it simpler.
Yeah,
we've definitely added an easy button on top of it like 5 years ago called guard authentication. But there are still like a bunch of pieces that we can just like pull out. They're going to make it like super awesome and super simple. The maker bundle is like another one that already has like made it step through some of those layers really easily. Like you have a make user command, you can like make a user and it asks you like, do you need to check their password, or is this like more of an API user, maybe it's a SSO user, so it'll walk you through that. And like there's another one called like make auth to like help you like build the different styles of authenticators. But we can still make like the security components simpler. And then there's whatever Kevin Douglas over at API Platform is working on. Like he released Mercure. So,
I saw it. It's a real time like pusher. It looks like. Yeah,
it's built on HTTP2. So if you know the idea behind WebSockets, and again, this is like me talking about my pay grade like normal. But if you know the like what you get from WebSockets, you know, you're like, oh, like I pushed something from my server and like the JavaScript instantly updated. Like that's what it is. Yeah. But it's built on top of the new technology and concepts behind HTTP2. So it's like leveraging HTTP push in some way. So it is like a server that you run. And he's like made like a whole spec around it, and like Mercure is the library itself that like does that. So you spin up this Mercure instance, yeah, then you're able to like publish messages from the server and like listen to them from JavaScript, which is also another thing. Like if you go that like full Dockerized API platform setup, you know, like that's one of the things you get is a Docker container that's running Mercure, so that your application can instantly just start sending messages to it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. When can people expect like a deep dive of API platform on Symphony Casts?
Yeah, a month.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, I know you should, man. It's like hopefully sooner. It's a lot of it's already written, and we're gonna do multiple parts on it because it's super. There's a lot to cover, and it's super awesome.
So in the meantime, what kind of stuff is dropping on Symphony Cast right now?
Ooh, right now we are doing a really quick one on Webpack Encore, which is like one of my favorite libraries. So it's basically Webpack with an easy button. So again, like it's something else that like is like an idea that's borrowed from Laravel because they have Mix. Yep. So it's basically Symfony's way of that. My plug for Webpack Encore, and it works in anything because it's just a node library, is that it's like if you've used Webpack before, it's a very small layer on top of it. Whereas Mix is really like takes over the entire experience for better or worse. And like you kind of do things the Mix way. Webpack Encore, you actually have a webpack.config.js file, just like you have with Webpack. And all you're doing inside of that is you're actually using basically a configuration builder. Yep. It's super rad, but you're like, you know what? I need like this entry, that entry, that entry. I want Sass support. I want to go through like the React preset, and I want like TypeScript support and like these two other things. And at the bottom, you're basically like, now can you barf out the standard Webpack config that would give me that? Yeah. So, and it works really well. So we're doing Webpack Encore right now. We just did like a file uploads one, which is super fun because we uploaded stuff to, you know, the cloud and use Fly system and all that cool stuff. Nice. So then it's like, and then we'll do Messenger once 4.3 comes out. We're gonna cover Mailer. It's like just lots of cool stuff to nerd out on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I love y'all's platform. I made Wage buy for me at one point, and it was awesome to deep dive and learn so many things. So I want to make sure we got a plug for that too, because it's so. I mean, like when I remember, like we found out a little bit earlier when Fabian was bringing what was KMP University under the Symfony name, and we were like, oh, that's so cool, and so happy to see y'all making it with the success there. So
thank you, man.
It's been fun. Get a subscription if you don't have one. It's
check it out.
More. However, I don't even know how much does it cost a month?
$24.99 a month. Or this is kind of our way of giving things away for free because that's like I'm an open source person, so I do that. And then like Leanna's like, you can't give everything away for free, and I'm like, but I want to. She's like, but we have to send our kid to daycare. So we have all of the scripts and code blocks are free below the video. Because honestly, it's tough with everybody around the world. So like if you can't afford $24.99 or whatever, or you just like want to take it for a desk drive, just read the script below. We have like code blocks in there. We have something called magic code blocks where the code blocks are actually expandable. So as you're like reading through, you see a code block, and code blocks like kind of looks like a GitHub pull request where we show you like the 5 lines that are important. But if you're like lost and need more context, then you can just like click to expand. And if you have a subscription, you can click any of the text like in the middle down there, and it'll like pop you up to that part of the video, which is one of my favorite features.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like it a lot. Cool, man. It was great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming out here. Is there anything we left off that you want to hit up real fast, or? Wait. do you want to do your coworkers one? Forms? Why? Yeah, let's talk about forms real fast. They suck. They're terrible, and I hate. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm glad that the web is moving away from forms. Is that a valid answer?
It's one of those. I remember my boss at one point when I first started. He was like, if you figure out forms, you'll be like the best developer in the company. And almost a year and a half later, I'm still like, man, forms they're not terrible, but they're not.
It's such a crazy, cool, awesome component that gets like so much stuff done and wrapped into one. Until you have like that case where like your form starts doing weird stuff, like your form starts getting like a little bit complicated, and then you're kind of like you get into more trouble. Yeah. So my advice is like use the form system until you don't like it anymore, and then stop using it and do something else.
just build basic forms with a HTTP request.
I mean, you can totally like I know it, like, of course, I've been doing it so long, I know it really well, so like I can do lots of stuff with it. But
yeah,
the problem is like when your forms, like the form system is set up really well to like work to like the form system is happy when your entity class and your form look exactly the same. Like I have a name property and I have a name field, right? Like, yay, it's very kumbaya in that way. And as soon as that starts falling apart, then you start like just lots of glue code to like try to get this thing. And like you could seriously have a form with 3 fields in it where you have like a form class and then you have like 7 different layers trying to like get those 3 fields to like fit into the entity that it doesn't match very well. So that's where people like basically go wrong. So yeah, use until doesn't help you. Also, like DTOs are helpful for people that get into a mess. You know, if your form class doesn't look like your entity, make a DTO that has the exact same 3 fields as your model, or sorry, as your form. And then in your controller, just grab the 3 fields off your DTO and just like shove them onto the 10 database tables that need to be updated, and then call it a day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a little bit of black magic with the forms, but yeah, I mean, like you said, if your entity and your form match up, it's a flawless experience.
It's like, you know, it's one of those things, like it's like one of the few components where I'm like, most of the time I'm like, you're like, hey, this is getting kind of hard, and I'm like, you know what, just like do this and this and push through, and you're gonna like love the result. And like that's the only component I can think of where I'm like, take it to that 80% where you're having a good time, and then bail on the last 20%. Don't push through. You're not gonna be happy with your life afterwards.
Well, I'm never happy with my life, but I feel like getting to the 80% is definitely a good piece of advice for most people, especially people new at Symfony who don't totally understand what the form entities are actually supposed to be doing.
So that all came back from Matt's coworkers wanting to put in the question forms, comma, why, question mark.
Yep.
So I thought it deserved an answer.
Cody and Suggs, that was for you. Give me a raise. No. Like I said, Ryan, awesome to see you. Awesome to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We'd love to. I mean, we should in 6 months or so after our next Symphony conference. Let's get back together and see what new stuff is going on in Symphony.
I love you, man.
Cool, man. It's great seeing you.
And I'm looking forward to that built on API platform. I'm looking forward to the Twitter stream.
Bug me so I keep doing it. Otherwise,
when should we, as the town hall community, check back in with Matt Trask on the progress?
Every day until it's done.
You know where to find me. You have my phone number. You have my Twitter, my Slack. We're friends on Facebook, I think. I don't know.
Matt Collum has your phone number also now.
Do what?
Matt Collum also has your phone number now, so he can harass you.
Yeah, but he won't because he thinks text messages are beneath him.
Really?
Yeah, he asked me. He's like, "Why are we using such outdated technology to talk?" I'm like, "When did text messages become outdated?" I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah. If you can, bug me about it, and I'll keep making progress. And I'll try and blog about it too. Just kind of help other people. But I will definitely get working on that tomorrow. Cool. All right. I'm going to forget all about that. I know I am too.
It's okay.
That's why we're here.
Several people are here to remind you. So don't you worry.
I know Wage is watching and I know Bo is watching. So I know somebody's going to remind me to work on this little throwaway project. But like I said, Ryan, thank you. Amanda, thank you so much. We'll see everyone next time.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.